Hello everyone, this is Dexy, and I wanted to talk a bit about the part two to the mainline update that they're going to be releasing later today. Uh, Mostly because the part two kind of in introduced some mostly bad news to the changes that they were doing. For the most part, a lot of the adjustments that they were doing were great, but a lot of these are not too good. Uh, of course, they're going to be hitting corrosive status procs because of the armor scaling and health scaling nerfs. Perfectly fine, makes sense. Uh, Corrosive now has a duration and it doesn't strip off armor completely anymore. Completely understandable. That's not a big problem at all. I would have liked to see some changes to radiation as a status effect because it's not very useful. Impact is not going to be very useful either. Puncture, once again, not too useful. But I would definitely say that puncture is a more useful version, not a more useful version, but a more useful alternative to impact because impact will still pretty much do nothing. Uh, and I did see someone on the Reddit that proposed that instead of making it so that the blast status effect reduces enemy accuracy, that they give this effect to impact and leave blast stat effect the way it is. And I personally agree full-heartedly. Uh, I think that blast as a status effect, it makes a lot more sense for enemies to get knocked down and for impact to reduce their accuracy because impact is kind of like a concussion type status effect. Probably you could kind of think of it that way. That reduces their accuracy, and blast, just knocks people over. Makes a lot more sense. They're also going to be hitting the uh, auras that mostly impact armor and shields, which I guess that kind of makes sense. Nobody really used the infested impedance aura anyway, so I don't think anyone really cares too much about that one. But most of these make sense because they're reducing armor and health scaling as a whole. Now here comes the kind of nasty news. So self damage was removed and replaced with self stagger in the first part of the revising update, and this was a really awesome thing. They said that they would also be increasing the damage of all of the weapons with AOE effects by 20%, and as a result, they would also make it so that there is a 50% radial damage drop off from the central impact, which I think is a very good compromise for uh, making it so that you can't one shot yourself anymore. And uh, yeah, that's pretty much about it. Especially the buff and damage, like that would feel pretty nice for a lot of AOE weapons. Instead, they decided to make it so that there is a 20% increase in radius. Okay. And then they made it so that there is a 90% radial damage fall off, which is really bad. It's gonna kill explosives as a weapon class in Warframe. Like there is going to be no reason to use it because if you hit or if you hit anything but the enemy that you're aiming for, it will do a very small fraction of the damage that it normally would. So here I have a visualization of what the original changes would look like. This is just kind of a simple idea. Of course, with the changes, you would just increase all these numbers by 20% uh, because they're getting a 20% damage buff. And 600. So, oh, not 6,000, 600. So this is what it would look like right here. Yeah, you start with 1,200 damage in the middle, and then as you go out, that damage slowly decreases to 50%. So over 5 meters, you lose half your damage. Perfectly fine. I think that's a very good compromise. Instead, what they decided to do, once again, is add a 10%, or not a 10%, but a 90% damage drop off over the range. And what that would look like is you wouldn't get the 20% damage bonus. You would increase your range by 1 meter which isn't a very big increase at all. And what this midpoint area would look like is you would have 550 damage because you lose 45% of the damage from here to the midpoint. So over 3 meters, you lose 45% of your damage. And then from the midpoint to here, you lose another 45%. So, oh, not 900, 100. You have 100 radiation damage. So over 6 meters, you lose 90% of your damage, which is a crazy, crazy solution to the quote-unquote problem of AoE weapon spam. And I do have a problem with the reasoning that they gave, because they said that several players brought up the history of the Town Core, and for some reason they want to be conservative with the starting point of explosives for a balance perspective. It just doesn't make any sense. Because, I mean, this is a PvE game. There's not really any harm in stuff being overpowered at first and then you tone it down. Like, I don't see why no one's even going to be using explosives because they're just going to be too bad. So I don't know why they would do it this way. If anything, you should make them overpowered so everybody will use them, and then you can find different ways to tone down the effectiveness of them. Like, I think that would be a much better alternative to whatever the hell is happening here. And also, we want to make sure that it can, with no other choices. And this is another problem that I have with the reasoning too. They're basically saying that it'll be a bunch of explosives once these changes go through and with no other choices. There will be other choices. They literally made it so that a lot of these damage types are a lot more viable than they used to be, which means that a larger variety of weapons and weapon build types are going to be viable. So just because something is strong doesn't mean that it's the only option. So I don't know. I don't like that this is the reasoning for it. This is just kind of a we don't want this to be a problem at all, so we're just going to completely neuter every single bit of it, I suppose. I guess that's what I'm getting from it, but whatever. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Hopefully they especially change the damage drop off, because this is just brutal right here. Like, looking at this is just terrible. No AoE weapons are going to be able to be like even remotely useful after these changes go through. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. If you disagree with me, go ahead and, I guess, shout at me. Uh, tell me how wrong I am. But yeah, so if you guys enjoyed, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more. If you don't, then don't. And hopefully I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.